What's good, YouTube? I just want to say you're welcome, because I already know you're going to say thank you, Zaire, for this video. But hey, we on that 2014 World Cup. I ain't gonna lie, this is my first little World Cup I've ever seen. I remember World Cup in like high school. Everybody was watching that shit, bro. This was like in what, 2022? I was in high school. I remember going to Makerspace. Who even has Makerspace, bro? Makerspace was like some wood shit, bro. I don't even know how I got put in that class. I think I failed it too. But everybody was just on their phone watching that shit World Cup. I'm like, bro, who cares about this shit, right? But now as I got older, I mean, like, shit, I'm trying to expand my horizons and stuff, bro. Like, I'm tired of watching just the NBA and UFC and shit. So 2014 World Cup, this is like the best one I'm hearing. That's the one. That's what I heard. Hopefully this shit turned me into like a super fan. I know World Cup is coming back in 2026, right? It's every 4 years like the Olympics. So yeah, it's coming back 2026. Who y'all going with? Let me know in the comments. You know, I'm going for the USA. Come on.
The 2014 World Cup to this day remains to be one of the most iconic editions of the tournament in its history. It had everything from major upsets to Cinderella stories to breakout stars that are still referenced to this day, and had a ton of heartbreak moments that most football fans will never forget. However, that one sentence explanation doesn't do the tournament justice on how truly amazing and legendary it was. So today, let's relive some of the iconic 2014 World Cup moments that show why this World Cup will never be forgotten.
I'm gonna be the judge of that and see if this is the best one.
The first reason why the 2014 World Cup is still seen as so iconic is the fact that it was hosted in Brazil. You know, the football capital of the world, some would say. After all, any football fan would know this, but Brazilians are some of the biggest lovers of the beautiful game. Their national team has literally won 5 World Cups, the most out of any national team in the world. And they've had some of the best footballers to ever play the sport. Ronaldinho, Zico, Romario, Rivaldo, Kaká, R9, Neymar, my idolo, and of course, debatably the best Brazilian footballer ever.
I know some of these players, bro. I know some of these players.
January 2020 survey that they took, approximately 46% of the Brazilian population identified as fans or huge fans of football, which means that almost half the population or 212 million people love the sport. And that same survey also found out that Brazil was a sport with the largest fan base in Brazil, and only 2 out of the 10 respondents expressed no interest in the sport at all. Plus, with the passion for football in the country being so deep, the country is often referred to as O País do Futebol, which translates in English to the country of football. When your country has a nickname like that, I feel like it's only right that you can call yourself the capital or the home of football. But it's not just the fact that Brazilians are in love with the beautiful game. It's the fact that Brazil were heading into the 2014 World Cup on a high. You see, leading up to the tournament, one of the greatest footballers to ever play the game, who once had the potential of being even greater than Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, was entering his first World Cup. And at 21 years old, he was already the face of the national team. Not only that, remember that Spain team that dominated the early 2010s, where they won 3 tournaments in a row, the 2008 Euros, the 2010 World Cup, and then the 2012 Euros? Well, Neymar led Brazil to absolutely destroy that very same Spain team in the Confederations Cup final in 2013, where Brazil beat Spain 3-0 with Neymar being the star player of the country. So, with
shout out
Brazil
Neymar. I heard Neymar is like for real like Kyrie. That's what I heard. I heard Neymar like Kyrie. And I ain't gonna lie, when I first ever whenever I would think of like soccer or football, like, you know, I would always think of Spain. I thought Spain was like that #1 team. I never knew Brazil was this like hype with football like that. I never knew that. That's hard.
With one of the best players in the game leading the way, and at the same time being the host, Brazil as a whole is definitely one of the reasons why this tournament has become so iconic. However, speaking of Brazil's performance at the World Cup, things happened that football fans are never going to forget. And I'm not really just talking about any.
I ain't gonna lie, I ain't know who that was.
What happened to Brazil at the World Cup
I forgot this
is
was
why
a
so
narrator.
many people remember the tournament so well, even more than 10 years later. The opening game of the World Cup started off rough for the Brazilians, with Marcelo scoring an own goal to give Croatia an unexpected 1-0 lead. But thanks to the
Wait, whoa. Please tell me he said that wrong. Own goal? Like he scored on his own goal? Come on, dude. That's not acceptable. That's some middle school shit. You're in the major leagues and you're on a team with Neymar. That's embarrassing. I remember in like middle school, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, bro, there was this one 8th grader and he would always constantly score on the other dude basket, bro. I'm not even bullshitting. He would always score on the other player basket. You're an 8th grader, bro. I'm in 6th grade at this point. Put me in the game, coach. I would never do no shit like that. Own goal? Come on, dude.
Brazil would start the tournament in winning ways by securing a 3-1 victory. The next game, though, due to an Ochoa masterclass from Mexico, Brazil would draw to the North American country 0-0. But against Cameroon in the last group stage game, Brazil would be so dominant and win 4-1, with Neymar scoring a brace and getting 4 goals in 3 games. However, the round 16 tie against Chile would be a little bit tricky, with this Chile side in the same generation who essentially knocked out Spain, which we'll get to later, and the same generation of players who went on to win 2 Copa Americas back-to-back in 2015 and 2016. But after drawing 1-1 in 120 minutes, Brazil will win the penalty shootout, with Neymar scoring
like draws, bro. That's
and they would
so
make the
stupid to me. I'm
quarterfinals.
gonna be
But
honest.
after this is when bad things started happening to this football nation, and the reasons why this tournament was going to be remembered forever. In the quarterfinal game against Cinderella story side Colombia, which we'll talk about later, Brazil would end up winning 2-1 thanks to a goal from Thiago Silva in the 7th minute, and then David Luiz scoring an outrageous free kick in the 69th minute with his iconic screaming and running celebration. And like I said, even with James Rodriguez scoring one back to make it 2-1, it wasn't enough, and Brazil would make the semifinals. However, not without taking a couple of hits. First, the captain Thiago Silva would get booked with a yellow card in the 64th minute.
So who won the whole thing?
He was suspended for the semifinal showdown against Germany. Second, the 21-year-old star boy Neymar, who was carrying this nation at the World Cup, got injured by Zuniga. And please, bro, don't cancel me for saying that. That's dead ass his name. After he won the World Cup, got injured by Zuniga. And please, bro, don't cancel me for saying that. That's dead.
I'm gonna let you off the hook. That is his name.
After he rammed Neymar's back with his knee, which broke a bone in his back. Pause.
Damn.
And this put Neymar out for the rest of the tournament.
Bro, what are you trying to do to my mans, bro? Mans had his whole meat on his back, bro. Dude, that's worse than the OnlyFans hoe. Dude, come on, bro. I mean, bro put his whole entire jalooper in his back, dude.
After he rammed Neymar's back with his knee, which broke a bone in his back.
He must have had that pounder on him, bro. I'm gonna be honest, bro. That's a crazy meat rock.
Being the host nation is still a decent side without them, they were still expected to challenge a very relentless and strong Germany side. But 11 minutes into the game from a corner kick, Thomas Müller was wide open and simply kicked the ball in to give Germany an early 1-0 lead. Then 12 minutes later in the 23rd minute, Thomas Müller leaves the ball off perfectly for Klose, who gets his goal after scoring from a rebound to make that his 16th World Cup goal to make it 2-0, becoming the #1 goal scorer in the competition in World Cup history. But it gets so much worse, because 1 minute later in the 24th minute, Toni Kroos hits a half volley with his weak foot into the back of the net to make it 3-0. Then 2 minutes after that, 6th minute, Toni Kroos wins the ball back and receives the ball right in front of the net from Khedira to make it 4-0. And then 3 minutes after that, in the 29th minute, Khedira finally gets one of his own to make it 5-0. Yeah,
5-0.
Of a World Cup semifinal.
Whoa! Hold on, wait. Ain't that crazy? Cause isn't like goals in soccer like that's rare? 5-0 is like 50-0 in NBA terms. Yo, what's going on with Brazil? Oh, they don't have Neymar though. They don't have Neymar. Right?
Finals, Germany was beating Brazil 5-0. Not only that, Germany scored 4 goals in 6 to 7 minutes in the semifinal of the world's biggest competition, when almost everybody in the world was watching. As you can see, this game right here is iconic and forever etched in history, but not for the right reasons. Well, if you're a Brazilian fan, it's not for the right reasons. Because for Germany, I bet they didn't care at all. This game was so crazy that even my parents asked me to put on a replay of the game so they can watch it too. My parents don't really care about football, bro. That's how huge the destruction of Brazil news was. Even that Brazilian kid crying is still used in memes today. But of course, the game didn't end yet. Schürrle came off the bench and scored 2 goals of his own in the second half.
It's still going.
And then Oscar got that late goal to soften the blow by a very tiny margin to help end this depressing game for Brazil 7-1. And to this day, that scoreline is still traumatic for Brazilian fans. I remember when I was in Austria a couple years ago,
what's the biggest loss in soccer history, football history? What's the biggest loss? It wasn't fair though. They hurt my nigga Neymar.
But now it's time to go over one of the other reasons on why the 2014 World Cup is still so iconic. And yes, of course, all the Colombian national team was a part of it with their unique and emblematic goal celebrations, but one man was the face of it all for keeping it real, and that was James Rodriguez. But just like how he switched from Brazil to Colombia just now, you can do that too technically. With Surfshark.
That's a hard ass name. James Rodriguez. James. Ooh. Hold on, is this dude trying to promote an ad? It's not my ad. Not my sponsor. Shit.
Back in January of that World Cup year, which meant he was unable to regain match fitness in time for the tournament, thus ruling him out. So there wasn't too much hope for Colombia to go far at the tournament without missing their superstar. But luckily for Colombia, James Rodriguez came out of nowhere and showed up big time. The 22-year-old Monaco attacking midfielder at the time headed into the tournament as Colombia's unknown number 10 for the most part. But right away in Colombia's first game,
he was a bench player basically.
Greece, it was steamrolled past Greece 3-0, with James' corner kick playing a crucial part in Colombia's second goal of the game, and then scoring from their third right inside the box, perfectly placing the ball to the bottom left corner.
I think he just said their best player got hurt.
It gets even better for James though, because in the second game of the group stage against Ivory Coast, after dominating the better chances for the first 60 minutes of the game, but just being unable to score, James Rodriguez would clutch up for his nation in the 64th minute, scoring from a header from a corner kick to put Colombia.
But that has to hurt, bro. That headshot, bro. That has to hurt.
And even though Ivory Coast scored 1 goal later in the match, Colombia scored another goal shortly after James' goal. A goal where, by the way, James won the ball back for them to score, just FYI. This also meant that they won 2-1 and made it through. However, the top of the group was still undecided. decided. So Colombia desperately wanted to get the win against Japan in their last group stage game. And they did just that. Largely thanks to, of course, the rising star at the time, James Rodriguez. Now in the first half, Colombia would win a penalty in which
he was probably like a rookie or some
shit. To Colombia.
Damn,
however,
that's hard.
at a time in the first half, the ex-Leicester City striker that would win the Premier League 2 years later, Shinji Okazaki, was somehow scored an outrageous header that was crossed behind him to level up the tie. But then in the second half, James Rodriguez stole the show, as he often did at the World Cup. First, in the 55th minute, James Rodriguez would lay off the ball perfectly to the striker Jackson Martinez, the man who dipped his potential to collect the bag in China, and he scored to restore the lead for Colombia. Moving on to the 82nd minute, James Rodriguez would lay through a perfect ball to Jackson Martinez, where he proceeded to cut inside to score to make it 3-1 for Colombia. And this also meant that James Rodriguez would get 2 assists in this game. But the show didn't stop here, because in the 90th minute, James Rodriguez would dance with the ball, leaving the inside.
No. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. Doing a whole 360 into a face plant in the ground. I bet you he face planted.
Goalkeeper after that.
Oh, he didn't. He good slide, good recovery. But bro, I salute all football players, bro, because I think football is the hardest sport to learn, for sure. It requires so much concentration and skill with this shit, bro. It's crazy, bro. Yeah, they deserve all the hype, all the fans, all that shit, dude. They deserve all that because these niggas are nice. You know how hard it is to play fucking soccer, bro? I remember in 5th grade, bro, I got broke by a white boy. I got mixed by a white boy, bro. And I mean, he was white. He didn't even play soccer like that. This is how I knew there was no way I was ever playing football, soccer, bro. I was never ever playing that shit. I got broke by a white boy. I mean, put on my ass, bro.
4-1 to Colombia. And this made sure James Rodriguez finished the game with a goal and 2 assists, meaning he played a crucial role in 3 out of the 4 games that Colombia scored on that day. That is crazy. Yoshida is never going to forget this moment, especially because that goal is still being relived upon on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, etc. to this day. But now it's time for the serious round, the knockout stages, where Colombia were set to face a familiar foe, and the Colombo Bowl opponent Uruguay, who finished second in their group due to Costa Rica finishing above them, a side we'll talk about in a bit. Luckily for Colombia though, Uruguay star man Luis Suarez would be suspended for this match for biting Chiellini's shoulder in their match against Italy. And this advantage...
Yo, I gotta stop pausing. But bro, you niggas are amazing me right now with this football shit, bro. There's no way he just said he bit this nigga and got suspended. Bro, not even Draymond will do some shit like that, bro. Come on, bro. There is no way we're biting grown-ass men. Bro, there is no way this is real. Why? That's some shit my ex would do. Come on, man. You got me thinking about my ex.
Controls it beautifully, turns around swiftly, and slams the ball on the underside of the crossbar, and the ball goes in to put Colombia up ahead against Uruguay 1-0. This goal to this day is one of the greatest goals in World Cup history, and is remembered fondly upon from football fans all across the world, unless you're a Uruguayan fan, of course. And this goal was so special that it even later went on to win the 2014 Puskás Award, which meant that FIFA decided, given the technique, circumstance, etc., that this goal was the best goal scored in 2014. That's how magical and special this James Rodriguez goal against Uruguay was. But the story wasn't over for this game.
Was that the best goal in 2014?
James Rodriguez was waiting in the box for a Cuadrado header cutback, which happened, and he tapped the ball in to make it 2-0 to Colombia, and that would be the final score of this game, which meant that James Rodriguez carried his nation of Colombia to the quarterfinals of the World Cup for the first time in their history, something the great Valderrama couldn't even do, and they did all of that without their superstar up top, Radamel Falcao, at the 2014 World Cup, which just comes to show how special James Rodriguez was at this tournament. Then in the quarterfinals against Brazil, although Colombia lost 2-1, as I already mentioned in the previous section, James Rodriguez would get a goal in this game through a penalty in the 80th minute, but it wasn't enough to carry his nation of Colombia onward, and James could not control his tears back in the game. Even Brazilians recognized his excellence throughout the tournament.
So did Germany win the whole thing?
Respect and love, with even David Luiz comforting him post-game. But with James Rodriguez managing to get 6 goals and 2 assists in 5 games at the World Cup, he ended up winning the World Cup 2014 Golden Boot as not even a striker, but as an attacking midfielder.
He got MVP of the World Cup?
This performance secured him a dream big money move.
Is that what
he
the
spent
Golden Boot is?
Years at and won the Champions League at. Overall, though, the World Cup is often remembered as a James Rodriguez show, and it does help that he's hella handsome. Pause.
What?
Still are fangirling over him. But regardless, the streets will never forget this James Rodriguez and
that was random. That was random as hell.
Speaking about never forgetting performances, we gotta talk about the major
upset that happened
to the Spain national team at the 2014 World Cup. But if you're a football fan, you're all probably aware of the World Cup curse, where the country who wins the World Cup supposedly gets grouped at the next edition of the tournament. Now it's not a guarantee, as we saw with France most recently, where they won the 2018 World Cup, but instead of getting grouped, they went on to the final of the 2022 World Cup.
That's Mbappe. I know.
Has occurred multiple times in the past.
I know
some of my
players.
France won their first ever World Cup in their home country in 1998, where they dunked on R9's Brazil 3-0 in the final. But at the 2002 World Cup, they failed to progress in the group stages, even going out without scoring a single goal. Then in 2006, Italy won
I ain't gonna lie, practicing your whole entire life for this one moment and you go scoreless.
This national team was creme de la creme. This is the same national team that went on to win the 2008 Euros, snapping their trophy drought of 44 years, won the 2010 World Cup, becoming the world champions for the first time ever, then winning the 2012 Euros, destroying Italy 4-0 in the final, becoming the first national team in history to win 3 consecutive major international competitions. And they did so by showcasing the revolutionary tactical approach known as tiki-taka, which is a game plan characterized by revolved around intricate possession-based play, along with having a remarkable defensive record, not conceding a goal in the knockout stages of these 3 tournaments that they won. With that, along with the trophies, Spain would barely lose due to their rock-solid defense, even having a 35-game undefeated streak during this golden period of before the United States knocked them out in the Federations Cup in surprising fashion. Now they did lose the 2013
They lost to USA though.
Come on.
USA won in 2026. I'm telling
dominant 3-0
Mark my
absolutely
words.
Destroying Spain's tiki-taka style. The first time this really happened, and this kind of opened the blueprint on how to defeat this once seemingly unbreakable Spain national team. But that's only in hindsight, because heading into the 2014 World Cup, Spain were still one of the favorites to lift the World Cup, meaning a lot of football pundits in the space thought that they could go back-to-back at winning the tournament. But they couldn't be more wrong. In the first game against the Netherlands at the 2014 World Cup, the team that they beat in the 2010 World Cup final to win the tournament, it seemed like Spain were going to win again, with them dominating possession due to their tiki-taka tactical approach, and them scoring first thanks to a penalty from Xabi Alonso in the 27th minute. But when Netherlands dominated the shots and the shots on target, they were eventually going to score some goals, which they did. They scored a lot, in fact. Right before halftime in the 44th minute, Robin van Persie would make a run and receive a high ball from deep, and he would score the iconic Flying Dutchman diving header goal against the Spanish to bring back life to the Dutch national team right before the second half. What a goal this was for Van Persie, man. I feel like people forget how good this guy truly was back in the day. Then in the second half in the 53rd minute,
he literally flew into that ball, bro.
Ramos and Piqué at the back, and he finished the ball off brilliantly past Casillas to grab the lead for the Netherlands. From here on, it was a bloodbath against Spain. In the 64th minute, Stefan de Vrij would head the ball.
I wonder what y'all dribble moves are called.
And then in the 72nd minute, Robin van Persie would get a brace after a terrible Casillas touch to make it 4-1. And finally, in the 80th minute, Robin would also get a brace after he would dance around Casillas and finish the ball past 2 Spanish defenders to make it 5-1. And they destroyed the Spain national team in their opening game of the World Cup. This pretty much cemented the fact that Spain were not going to top this group. But if they got a result in the second game, they could stay alive and finish second in the group. However, in order to do this, they had to beat Chile, which they didn't do. Despite dominating on everything on the stat sheet, like the shots on target, the possession, passes, pass accuracy, etc., they couldn't dominate on the scoreboard, in which they scored a big fat 0. While Chile, on the other hand, even though the stats didn't favor them, the scoreline did, with Eduardo Vargas getting on the end of some nick. Then right at the end of the first half in the 43rd minute, Casillas hit a Chile.
Like really, like I feel like all you need is one, bro. Just one. And then play some defense. All you need is one.
To Chile.
Goalkeeper can't be that
had no rebuttal. They were unable to create anything meaningful to score from. And with that losing 2-0 on the day,
who's the best goalkeeper in the world right now, bro?
The previous
Let
world
me know. I want
champions
to see his
knocked out the
highlights.
2014 edition of the tournament, thus providing more base to the World Cup curse. In hindsight, though, the signs were there. This was an aging Spanish squad with the likes of Iker Casillas, Fernando Torres, Javier Martinez, David Villa, etc. All these players were way past their prime, and the manager Del Bosque even cried out for help beforehand, saying that they needed to change their tiki-taka style before it's too late. Well, it turned out it was too late, and Spain were given one of the greatest and unexpected upsets in World Cup history.
Cinderella stories.
But now let's switch the mood up from upsets to Cinderella/underdog stories, and it's only right that we start with the most unexpected story of the competition first: the deep Costa Rica national team run. After finishing second in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers for the 2014 World Cup, the Costa Ricans were hoping that the World Cup draw would be favorable to them. However, the footballing gods tried to curse Costa Rica, placing them in a very difficult group, with 11th place team according to FIFA in the world at the time, England, which consisted of players like Wayne Rooney, Frank Lampard, rising sensation Raheem Sterling, Steven Gerrard, Daniel Sturridge, etc. Then there was also the 6th place team in the world, Uruguay, consisting of Cavani, Luis Suarez, etc., and 9th place team Italy, consisting of Andrea Pirlo, Mario Balotelli, Buffon, Verratti, Chiellini, Bonucci, etc. And all these 3 teams were former world champions and one of the better national teams.
I wish I had a soccer name,
so
bro.
Costa Rica was pretty hard done by in this draw.
They names is so fire and unique, bro. It's just like it sounds like some type of sorcery shit. Like I love their names, bro. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I wish I wasn't from the USA. But shout out the USA.
Sure. To be fair, it wasn't looking good for Costa Rica initially.
It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
But Costa Rica has surprised for everybody.
Like
they had some talented players that the footballing world was yet to discover, like Keylor Navas, the greatest North American goalkeeper of all time, and a Real Madrid goalie that won numerous Champions Leagues and other trophies with the club, or the captain Brian Ruiz, who's essential to how
Has a goalie ever won MVP
And of course,
before?
how could we forget about Joel Campbell, the young rising star at the time who got signed to Arsenal as well. Everybody was expecting big things out of him.
What the fuck?
And with players like these and many more, dare I say that Costa Rica had one of the greatest Cinderella stories.
Yo, he still got it in his stomach, bro. Bro, that's a crazy selly, bro. That's a crazy selly.
Costa Rica had to play the highest ranked nation in the group, Uruguay, first. And the Costa Rican national team manager at the time, Jorge Pinto, set up his team in a 5-4-1 formation to combat Uruguay's 4-4-2 formation, and has wingbacks fly high up the pitch to expose the space behind Uruguay's midfielders and help out Brian Ruiz and Joel Campo on the attack. However, the game did not start off the best for Costa Rica, with them giving up a penalty in the 24th minute, and Edison Cavani easily buried to bring an early 1-0 lead to the Uruguayans. The Uruguay were definitely the better side in the first half, with them having the better chances even after the goal, but Costa Rica managed to stay strong and keep it only to a 1-goal deficit, and they themselves would bounce back in the second half. Because in the 54th minute, the rising star Joel Campo blasted the ball from a volley with his left foot inside the box to bring the game to a 1-1 stalemate. But then 3 minutes later, in the 57th minute, Oscar Duarte would head the ball at the back post and score to bring Costa Rica an unexpected and rare 2-1 lead. And following that, in the 84th minute, Marco Arena would run past the Uruguay defense and slip the ball past Muslera to secure a dramatic 3-1 victory over Uruguay to start off the 2014 World Cup campaign with a win to everybody's surprise. But at the time, a lot of football fans thought that Costa Rica's win was just a one-off, and that it was a fluke, with Luis Suarez not participating in the opening match due to him recovering from an injury. So when it came time for Costa Rica to play Italy in the next game, the streets were still expecting Costa Rica to lose. But the streets were wrong, because not only did Costa Rica have more shots on target with an even number of shots compared to Italy, but they won out on the most important category, which was the scoreline, with Brian Ruiz scoring a header at the back post in the 44th minute to score the lone goal of the game, pulling off another miracle upset for Costa Rica as they went on to beat Italy 1-0 and guaranteed themselves a spot in the round 16. This was truly a miracle, and the Costa Ricans had a right to celebrate, but the job wasn't over yet.
Job's not finished. Job finished.
Shout out Cole, RIP.
Because if they wanted to top the group, they had to get a result against England in the final group stage game, which they did. I'll just get straight to the chase. England were not clinical enough, with them only having one shot on target, despite having double of Costa Rica's shots, and the game ended 0-0. So with Costa Rica managing to unexpectedly grab a total of 7 points, they topped the group with the world champions Uruguay, Italy, and England being inside it. That is crazy. But the story of Costa Rica's miracle run doesn't end here, because due to them topping the group, they lucked out by not having to play Colombia in the other group, and instead they got to play the weaker side respectfully in
I would love to go to
Greece.
Costa Rica.
Now Greece was not an easy team to beat. They were resilient, and even had the talented samurais up top. And to be honest, Greece throughout the entire match were the better team on the stat sheet and on the pitch. They won out on every single important category, including the shots, shots on target, and possession. However, Costa Rica were clinical with their one shot on target, because in the 52nd minute, Brian Ruiz hits the ball accurately into the bottom right hand corner at the edge of the box to give the unexpected 1-0.
Yo, goalie, what are we doing? Bro, I know y'all saw that, bro. Dude, that ball was traveling at 2 miles per hour, bro. There is no way the goalie did not get that ball, bro. He just watched it. He just watched it go right past. Bro, dude, if you my goalie, bro, you're getting shot, bro. I'm shooting you. You're off my team, bro, and your life is gone. Come on, bro. This is the World Cup, nigga. Lock in.
But sadly, Oscar Duarte slide tackled the Greek attacker.
I'm saving that every day of the week.
This got him a second yellow card, which meant that he was sent off and Costa Rica were down to 10 men. And even though Costa Rica were close to holding on to this narrow 1-0 lead in normal time, Socrates P in the 9+ first minute gets on the scoreboard from an initial novice save and scores to level the tie for the Greeks near the end of the game. This would break the heart of the Costa Rican fans, as the game had to go into extra time, where Keylor Navas would make ridiculous saves one after the other, and eventually the match would go into a penalty shootout. And penalties though, Costa Rica were flawless, scoring their first 4 penalties, while Getgas from Greece stepped up and had his penalty saved by Navas in the shootout. And Michael Umania, who was taking Costa Rica's 5th penalty, hits the top bins and sends Costa Rica to the quarterfinals.
I feel like those kicks are so easy to do.
World Cup history. Pulling off upsets
it's easy to fake out and just
Costa Rica
hit it
had a
way.
ridiculous run so far, man, but sadly it came to an eventual end, with Costa Rica facing the talented Netherlands in the quarterfinals, after the controversy got through with Robin potentially falling for a last-minute penalty against Mexico, with the iconic saying no error penal pretty much came from. And although Costa Rica managed to get the Dutch all the way to a penalty shootout, Tim Krul's substitution for Silson would pay off for the Netherlands, with the penalty goalkeeping experts saving Brian Ruiz's penalty, and then saved Umania's penalty, the man who scored the winning penalty against Greece, to break the heart of the Costa Ricans and to send the Dutch through to the semifinals of the World Cup. So although the Costa Rican dream run ended here, the streets will never forget this fairy tale World Cup campaign from Costa Rica, as they impressed every football fan around the world. But now it's time to talk about another solid miracle/underdog story at the World Cup.
Hell
It's a bit biased for me to talk about them because it is my national team, but I want to go over the United States at the 2014 World Cup. Heading into this 2014 edition of the tournament, USA were coming in hot with them topping the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying group. However, just like Costa Rica, the United States were drawn into a very difficult group with the later World Cup champions Germany, a prime Cristiano Ronaldo-led Portugal, and the country that knocked out the US in the previous 2010 World Cup, Ghana.
Wait, Ronaldo was on Portugal? And he was in his prime on Portugal? I thought he was in his prime on the Real Madrid team. Maybe I gotta watch Ronaldo Portugal highlights.
There weren't too many people out there that were thinking that the US could make it out of this group alive. And what came even more as a surprise was that the manager at the time, Jurgen Klinsmann, left out a key player from the 2010 World Cup. You know, the man that scored the last-minute goal against Algeria to help us top the group in 2010, Landon Donovan? Yeah, Klinsmann left him out of the 2014 World Cup squad because he believed other players were performing better and were more deserving of a spot. And also the fact that Donovan took a sabbatical from the national team, which meant that he didn't participate for a lot of the qualifying games. This was really controversial at the time, leaving debatably the greatest American soccer player to some at home. This was a ballsy move, but luckily in hindsight, it paid off, with the other American GOAT, my personal GOAT after Pulisic, Clint Dempsey, clutching up for the States and Brazil. Now the first game of the tournament for the US was against Ghana, our nemesis that has knocked us out 2 times before, but this time it started off great for the Americans. Literally in the first minute of the game, 34 seconds to be exact, Clint Dempsey easily glides by a Ghanaian defender and strikes the ball with his weak foot off the post to give the United States an early 1-0 lead in this match. However, it did seem like Ghana would break our hearts in the World Cup for the 3rd time in a row. First in 2006,
are you serious?
And now 2014, with Andre Ayew getting free in the box and scoring past Tim Howard to score a late 82nd minute equalizer to potentially secure a point for the Ghanaians. But then, 4 minutes later, one of the most unforgettable and iconic moments happened in World Cup history for the United States. Because from a corner kick, John Brooks gets free in the box in the 86th minute and heads the ball in to score a late winner for the US.
Oh yeah, off the head
with
too.
A 2-1 win. This goal was heard all across the country,
Off
with
the head.
every state in America celebrating this legendary Brooks goal. I'll never forget. This moment was goated. But want to know what's even more goated? That game against Portugal on the very next match day. Now Portugal on paper were obviously the better national team.
Against
It's
Ronaldo?
Portugal. They literally had Cristiano Ronaldo, and even on the stat sheet, they were better too, with them having the more shots on target, and the possession, etc. But the USA back in 2014 were straight dogs, and they wouldn't let this phase them. Even when in the 5th minute, Nani scored a very early goal to bring Portugal a 1-0 lead, and the US were playing a goal down for a majority of the game. But then in the 64th minute, one of the best goals in American World Cup history happened after the US continuously knocked on the door in the second half for an equalizer. Jermaine Jones collected the ball outside the box from a rebound and then smashed it in brilliantly to level up the game 1-1. What a goal this was! It was a banger, but it gets even better because in the 81st minute, Captain America himself, Clint Dempsey, would keep himself onside from a yelling cross and chested the ball in to bring a rare 2-1 lead. Now, many other American fans thought that we were going to beat Portugal and secure a historic 2-1 win against them at the World Cup.
What's the real actor name for Captain America? Chris Evans? Yeah, Chris Evans.
Crossing a beautiful ball in the injury time to Varela, who scored in the 9+5th minute to rescue a point in a 2-2 draw. But regardless, this game was amazing to watch as a USA fan, and I'll never forget it. And although the US lost 1-0 to Germany in the last game, Portugal's early 4-0 defeat to Germany on the first match day set back their goal difference by a lot. And in return, it meant that the US would be finishing second in the group of death and making it out alive into the knockout stages due to goal difference.
No, we had to play Germany? Did we lose to Germany?
And this meant that we had to face the start of this quote-unquote Belgium golden generation in the round 16.
Oh, no,
I'm not gonna lie, we were getting cooked all game. Look at these stats, man. We might have had the more possession, but Belgium had 39 shots against us.
Damn,
17 of them being on target. But guess what? Tim Howard was on fire in this game, and he made a historic 16 saves in just this knockout stage game against Belgium alone. The most saves any goalkeeper has made in a knockout stage game at the World Cup.
Shout out Tim Howard.
Tim Howard the nickname Secretary of Defense. The streets will never forget this legendary Tim Howard performance. However, even though Tim Howard is doing everything to keep us in the game, and the fact that Wanalowski was announced to sit at the end of normal time to give us a potential late win, the deadlock broke in extra time against us, with Kevin De Bruyne scoring in the 93rd minute to give Belgium a 1-0 lead. And then Lukaku scored in the 105th minute to make it 2-0. And although Julian Green ended up bringing one back in the 107th minute to bring back hope for us Americans that we can go through, nothing came afterwards. And the United States would get knocked out in the round 16 by Belgium 2-1. However, football fans like myself will never forget this amazing 2014 World Cup performance by the USA. Because making it out of the group of death was amazing enough. But to last that long against this Belgian golden generation in the round 16 was the cherry on top to an impressive 2014 World Cup campaign. Only providing more reason on why the 2014 World Cup can
US gonna take over soccer too, bro. I'm telling you.
But now I think it's time to talk about the greatest footballer to ever live.
I'm lying.
Lionel Messi and his devastating setback at the 2014 World Cup with Argentina. You see, Messi was in the prime age of 27 at the World Cup. And after having underwhelming 2006 and 2010 World Cup performances, he was expected to put on a show and carry the 2-time world champions to make it to the 2014 World Cup in the country down the nemesis of football, Brazil. And initially, it did seem like this could be the case. After all, Argentina's group stage performance went flawlessly. In the first game against debutants in the competition, Bosnia and Herzegovina, it started off on the strong foot in the 3rd minute, with Kolasinac scoring an own goal to give the Argentinians an early 1-0 lead. Then in the 65th minute, Messi started dictating the play at the center of the pit and started pulling the strings. And eventually at the edge of the box, he got 2 Bosnian defenders to trip over each other. And he slammed the ball off the left post to get the ball into the net to bring a 2-0 lead for Argentina at the World Cup. It was an insane goal for Lionel Messi. It was an absolute peach of a shot. And even though Ibisevic scored a goal late for Bosnia in the 84th minute, it didn't matter because Argentina would win 2-1 and start the World Cup campaign with 3 points. Then in the last group stage game against Nigeria, Messi had to have another masterclass to make sure Argentina collected all 3 points.
I grew up on Messi though, but my friend was definitely a Ronaldo fan. But I've always thought Messi was better. Even though I never even seen they highlights or none of that. I just like the Messi name better. I don't.
It came to nobody's surprise that Argentina weren't performing at their best, and even though they did score an offside goal from Higuain, Germany would have some of the better chances. And in extra time, when Mario Götze came off the bench and scored the winner for Germany, Messi would fail to show up, and his last-minute free kick that he skied would symbolize his knockout stage. And although Messi would end up winning the player of the tournament,
gosh, Messi! Oh hell no! That's literally me when I first started playing FIFA, bro. Like. And I know I've said this before, but like, bro, that's when you like hold the circle button too hard, bro, and it just shoot all the way up into the stands, bro. That ball hit a little kid in his head, bro. I'm telling you, I know it did, bro. That was crazy, bro. I've been sleeping. Where's the 2026 one at? I might have to go. Shout out football. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. I've been sleeping a little bit, bro. I've been sleeping. That was a good ass video. I learned a lot. And we're going to keep on learning. But that was a good-ass video. Shout out to Nabuto. Love y'all, bro.